Did you know that one of the greatest comedies ever made was almost a serious drama about the end of the world? Director Stanley Kubrick started writing a terrifying war film, but every time he tried to make it scary, he laughed instead. The idea of total destruction seemed so crazy that it became funny. So he changed everything. He turned fear into dark humor. That decision created a masterpiece. Dr. Strangelove showed us how to laugh at our own madness. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about Dr. Strangelove. Number 20. The director who couldn't stop laughing. Stanley Kubrick was one of the most serious filmmakers in history. He studied every detail. He planned every shot. He never joked around on set, but when he started adapting the novel Red Alert, something strange happened. He kept finding the story funny. The book was a deadly serious thriller about nuclear war. It described how one mistake could destroy all life on Earth. Kubrick read it over and over. He wanted to make audiences terrified. He wanted them to feel the danger. But every scene he imagined made him smile. The generals seemed ridiculous. The politicians looked foolish. The whole idea of mutual destruction felt absurd. How could smart people build weapons that would kill everyone, including themselves? Kubrick tried to fight it. He wrote dramatic scenes. He created tense dialogue. But the laughter kept coming back. Finally, he gave up. He called his co-writer and said they needed to change direction. Instead of fighting the humor, they would embrace it. They would make the darkest comedy ever filmed. Kubrick later said that the only way to tell the truth about nuclear war was through satire. Serious films made people feel hopeless, but comedy made them think. It made them question the madness. That simple decision changed film history. A thriller became a comedy. Fear became laughter, and audiences finally saw how crazy the whole situation really was. What started as frustration became pure genius. Number 19. The actor who played three different people. Peter Sellers was already famous when Kubrick called him. The British comedian had shown incredible range in previous films. But Kubrick wanted something special. He asked Sellers to play not one character, not two characters, but three completely different people in the same movie. Sellers would be Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, a nervous British officer. He would be President Merkin Muffley, the calm and reasonable American leader. And he would be Dr. Strangelove himself, the wheelchair-bound German scientist with a mysterious past. Each character needed a different voice. Each needed different body language. Each needed a completely separate personality. Sellers spent weeks preparing. He studied accents. He practiced movements. He created backstories for all three men. On set, he would finish a scene as one character, change costumes, and return as someone else entirely. The crew sometimes forgot they were watching the same actor. Sellers transformed so completely that his own friends couldn't recognize him. His British officer was polite and proper. His president was soft-spoken and worried. His doctor was wild and unpredictable. Kubrick gave Sellers incredible freedom. He let the actor improvise. He encouraged strange choices. Sellers responded with some of the greatest performances ever captured on film. Many people who watched the movie for the first time had no idea one person played all three roles. They thought the studio had hired three different actors. That confusion was the ultimate compliment. Three men, one actor, pure magic. Number 18. The fourth role. That never happened. Kubrick originally wanted Peter Sellers to play four characters, not three. The fourth role was Major T.J. Kong, the cowboy pilot who rides the nuclear bomb at the end. Sellers practiced the Texas accent. He studied American westerns. He prepared to add another personality to his collection. Then disaster struck. During rehearsals, Sellers injured his ankle badly. Some say he fell. Others say he twisted it, climbing into the bomber cockpit. The injury made it impossible for him to work in the cramped airplane set. Kubrick was devastated. He had built the entire film around Sellers playing multiple roles. Now, one of the most important characters needed a new actor. The director scrambled to find a replacement. He auditioned several performers. None of them felt right. Then someone suggested Slim Pickens, a real rodeo cowboy who had become a character actor. Pickens flew to England immediately. He walked onto the set wearing his own cowboy boots and hat. He spoke in his natural Texas drawl. He didn't need to act like a cowboy. He was a cowboy. Kubrick knew instantly that he had found something better than what he had planned. Sellers would have created a character. Pickens brought authentic truth. That ankle injury seemed like terrible luck at the time, but it gave the film one of its most memorable performances. Sometimes accidents lead to perfection. What looked like disaster became destiny. Traus, number 17. The Cowboy Who Didn't Know. It was a comedy. Here's one of the strangest facts about Dr. Strangelove. Slim Pickens had no idea he was making a comedy. Nobody told him. Kubrick deliberately kept the actor in the dark. Pickens received his script pages one scene at a time. He never saw the complete screenplay. He never understood the satirical tone. He thought he was starring in a serious war thriller, so he played Major Kong completely straight. He delivered every line with total conviction. When he read the survival kit contents, he wasn't trying to be funny. When he rode the bomb down from the sky, he wasn't performing comedy. He was being a brave soldier doing his duty. That complete sincerity made everything funnier. The other actors knew they were making satire. They played their roles with subtle winks. But Pickens was deadly serious. His authentic performance created the perfect contrast. Kubrick understood something important about comedy. The funniest moments come when actors don't try to be funny. They come from truth. Pickens gave absolute truth in every scene. He believed in Major Kong. He believed in the mission. He believed in America. That belief made audiences laugh harder than any joke could. Years later, Pickens finally watched the completed film. He was shocked. He had made a comedy without knowing it. But he wasn't angry. He laughed along with everyone else. The joke had been on him, and it was the greatest joke of all. Number 16. The War Room. That amazed the president. The war room in Dr. Strangelove doesn't exist in real life. Kubrick invented it completely. He hired production designer Ken Adam to create something that looked absolutely real. Adam studied military facilities. He examined photographs. He consulted with experts. Then he ignored everything and used his imagination instead. The result was extraordinary. A massive circular table dominated the center. Huge maps covered the walls. Harsh lights created dramatic shadows. The ceiling hung low and oppressive. Everything felt cold and threatening. The set cost an enormous amount of money. It was one of the largest interior sets ever built in England at that time. Every detail was considered. Every surface was polished. The war room looked more real than reality itself. When President Ronald Reagan visited the White House years later, he asked to see the war room. His staff had to explain that no such room existed. Reagan had seen Dr. Strangelove. He assumed the movie showed something real. That's how convincing Adam's design was. It fooled the President of the United States. Other filmmakers studied the set for decades. They copied its style. They borrowed its atmosphere. Ken Adam created something from pure imagination, and it became more famous than any real government building. Fiction became more memorable than fact. Number 15. The General Who Was Tricked into Overacting. George C. Scott was a serious dramatic actor. He studied at prestigious theater schools. He won awards for intense performances. He prided himself on control and discipline. When Kubrick cast him as General Buck Turgidson, Scott wanted to play the role straight. He wanted dignity. He wanted restraint. Kubrick had other plans. The director knew that Scott could be incredibly funny if pushed, but Scott resisted comedy. He thought it was beneath him. So Kubrick developed a sneaky strategy. He asked Scott to do practice takes first. He called them warm-ups. He told Scott to go completely wild in these rehearsals. He encouraged the actor to make faces, wave his arms, and exaggerate everything. Scott agreed because he thought these takes would never be used. They were just exercises. Then Kubrick would film the real takes with Scott's controlled performance. But Kubrick lied. He used the wild takes in the final film. Every silly face, every dramatic gesture, every over-the-top moment. Scott was furious when he saw the finished movie. He felt betrayed. He had been tricked into giving a comedic performance. He refused to speak to Kubrick for years afterward. But audiences loved General Turgidson. Critics praised Scott's energy. The performance became iconic. Scott eventually admitted that Kubrick had been right. The wild takes were better than anything he had planned. Sometimes directors know actors better than actors know themselves. What felt like betrayal became brilliance. Number 14. The phone call that was completely improvised. One of the most famous scenes in Dr. Strangelove shows President Muffley making a phone call. He's trying to warn the Soviet premier about the incoming bombers. The conversation is absurd. Muffley apologizes constantly. He sounds like he's talking to an upset friend, not discussing nuclear apocalypse. Peter Sellers improvised almost every word. Kubrick gave him a basic outline. He told Sellers to imagine calling someone to deliver terrible news. But the actual dialogue came from Sellers' imagination in the moment. "Hello, Dmitri. Listen, I can't hear too well. Do you suppose you could turn the music down a little?" The lines sound like a regular awkward phone call. That's what makes them so disturbing and hilarious. World leaders discussing the end of civilization sound like neighbors complaining about noise. Kubrick filmed the scene many times. Each take was different. Sellers tried new jokes, new pauses, new reactions to the imaginary voice on the other end. The crew struggled to stay quiet. They wanted to laugh at every line. Kubrick used pieces from several different takes in the final edit. He assembled the best moments into one perfect conversation. Sellers never knew exactly what would appear in the finished film. He trusted Kubrick completely. That trust produced movie magic. A phone call that shouldn't have been funny became one of the funniest scenes ever filmed. All from imagination, all from the moment. Pure creative freedom. Number 13. The pilot who struggled with his own demons. Sterling Hayden played General Jack D. Ripper, the officer who starts the nuclear war. Ripper is completely insane. He believes in conspiracy theories about water fluoridation. He thinks foreign enemies are poisoning American fluids. He starts World War III based on delusion and paranoia. Hayden brought something personal to the role. The actor had struggled with alcoholism for years. He dealt with deep depression. He questioned his own choices constantly. During filming, Hayden was fighting his own internal battles. His performance carried genuine darkness because he understood troubled minds. He knew what it felt like to believe things that might not be true. He understood obsession. Kubrick recognized this immediately. He saw that Hayden's personal struggles added depth to General Ripper. The character wasn't just a cartoon villain. He was a broken man who genuinely believed he was saving the world. Hayden made Ripper terrifying and sad at the same time. You could almost feel sorry for him while hating what he had done. Years later, Hayden admitted that playing Ripper had been therapeutic. He explored his own fears through the character. He faced his own demons on screen. Acting became a way to understand himself better. That raw honesty showed in every frame. General Ripper feels real because real pain created him. Art and life blended together. Performance and truth became one. Number 12. The airplane. That worried the government. Kubrick needed to show the inside of a B-52 bomber. These planes carried nuclear weapons. They were among America's most secret aircraft. The military refused to help. They wouldn't provide photographs, blueprints, or any technical information. Kubrick couldn't even see a real bomber up close, so his team had to guess. Production designer Ken Adams studied publicly available information. He looked at news photographs taken from far away. He examined models sold in hobby shops. He made educated guesses about the cockpit layout. Then he built a replica based entirely on imagination and deduction. When the film was released, military officials were alarmed. The bomber interior in Dr. Strangelove looked remarkably accurate. The control panels were in roughly the right places. The instruments seemed correct. The overall layout matched classified designs. The government investigated. They wanted to know if someone had leaked secret information to Kubrick. Had a military insider provided classified documents? Had someone committed treason? The investigation found nothing. Kubrick's team had simply made excellent educated guesses. They had deduced the truth through careful research and logical thinking. The government was both impressed and disturbed. A film crew had accidentally recreated military secrets. That's how good Ken Adams' work was. He imagined something he had never seen, and he got it almost perfectly right. Imagination proved as powerful as intelligence gathering. What seemed impossible became reality through pure creativity. Number 11. The deleted ending that changed everything. Dr. Strangelove originally had a completely different ending. After all the serious scenes, Kubrick filmed an enormous pie fight. It started in the war room. Someone threw a pie at someone else. Then everyone joined in. Generals threw pies. Politicians threw pies. The president got covered in whipped cream. The entire serious set became a playground of flying desserts. It was supposed to represent the childishness of world leaders. These powerful men who controlled nuclear weapons were really just children throwing tantrums. The symbolism was obvious. Kubrick filmed the sequence over several days. It required hundreds of pies. The actors got messy. The beautiful war room set got destroyed. Everything was chaos and cream. Then Kubrick watched the footage. He decided it didn't work. The pie fight was too silly. It broke the careful tone he had created. The movie needed to end on a darker note, not with slapstick comedy. So he cut the entire sequence. All those days of filming were discarded. All those pies were wasted. Instead, the film ends with nuclear explosions and a haunting song. Audiences never knew what they had missed. The pie fight became Hollywood legend. People debated for years whether it would have been better. Most film historians agree that Kubrick made the right choice. Sometimes the best decision is knowing what to throw away. The ending we got was perfect. The ending we lost was just pie. Number 10. The song that made destruction beautiful. Dr. Strangelove ends with nuclear bombs exploding around the world. Mushroom clouds rise everywhere. Civilization ends in atomic fire. It should be the most terrifying moment in cinema. Instead, Kubrick plays a cheerful old song. We'll Meet Again was performed by Vera Lynn during World War II. It was meant to comfort soldiers leaving for battle. The sweet melody promised reunions and happy futures. Kubrick paired this innocent music with total annihilation. The contrast was devastating. Happy music played while humanity died. Sweet promises accompanied ultimate destruction. Audiences didn't know whether to cry or laugh. The combination created something new. It wasn't tragedy. It wasn't comedy. It was both at once. Film scholars have studied this ending for decades. How did Kubrick create such complex emotions? The answer was simple. He trusted his audience to feel the contradiction. He didn't explain the irony. He just presented it. People understood immediately. The gap between the hopeful song and the hopeless images said everything about human foolishness. We build weapons that will destroy us. We make cheerful plans while creating our own doom. That ending stays with viewers forever. Long after they forget specific scenes, they remember, "We'll meet again." They remember feeling confused and moved and disturbed all at once. One song, one ending, eternal impact. Old music made new horror beautiful. Number 9. The precious bodily fluids. Speech. General Ripper has a theory. He believes that water fluoridation is a communist plot. Foreign enemies are poisoning American water supplies to weaken the nation. They're attacking precious bodily fluids. It sounds absolutely insane. It sounds like something a disturbed mind would invent. But in 1964, many Americans actually believed this. Fluoride had been added to public water to prevent tooth decay. Some people were convinced it was a government conspiracy. They held meetings. They wrote pamphlets. They warned their neighbors about the danger. Kubrick didn't invent General Ripper's beliefs. He borrowed them from real life. The precious bodily fluids language came from actual conspiracy theorists. Kubrick and his co-writers read their pamphlets. They attended their meetings. They studied their arguments. Then they put those exact beliefs into the mouth of a military general. The satire was devastating because it was true. Real people thought like General Ripper. Real people would have started nuclear war over fluoride fears. Audiences laughed at the absurdity. But the laughter had an uncomfortable edge. They recognized these ideas. They knew people who believed similar things. The movie held up a mirror to American paranoia. It showed how irrational thinking could lead to catastrophe. General Ripper wasn't a fantasy villain. He was a warning about real dangers. Crazy beliefs could influence powerful people. That truth made the comedy much darker. Laughter and fear combined. Fiction reflected reality. Number 8. The film that was delayed by tragedy. Dr. Strangelove was supposed to be released in late 1963. The studio had planned a big premiere. Advertising was prepared. Everything was ready. Then President John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd. The entire country went into mourning. A comedy about nuclear war suddenly felt inappropriate. The studio postponed the release. They waited for the national mood to recover. They wondered if the film was too dark for grieving audiences. Some lines needed to be changed. In one scene, a character mentioned Dallas, Texas. That was now the city where Kennedy had been murdered. The reference seemed tasteless. Kubrick re-edited that moment. The studio pushed the premiere to January 1964. When the film finally opened, audiences responded powerfully. Perhaps the assassination had actually made the movie more relevant. People had just witnessed how quickly violence could change history. They understood how fragile civilization really was. Dr. Strangelove spoke to those fears. It acknowledged that destruction could come suddenly through foolishness and bad luck. The dark comedy didn't feel insensitive anymore. It felt necessary. Sometimes tragedy prepares audiences for difficult art. Sometimes national pain makes people ready to face uncomfortable truths. The delayed release might have helped the film succeed. What seemed like bad timing became perfect timing. Death made life more precious. Fear made laughter more needed. Number 7. The author who couldn't accept the comedy. Peter George wrote the novel Red Alert. It was a serious thriller about nuclear war. He explored military procedures. He examined Cold War tensions. He wanted readers to understand the real danger of atomic weapons. When Stanley Kubrick bought the film rights, George expected a faithful adaptation. Instead, Kubrick turned his serious book into a dark comedy. George worked on the screenplay. He tried to keep things dramatic, but Kubrick kept adding jokes. Every tense scene became satirical. Every serious character became slightly ridiculous. George felt conflicted throughout the production. He believed nuclear war was genuinely terrifying. He didn't think people should laugh about it, but Kubrick convinced him that comedy could convey truth more effectively than drama. People had become numb to serious warnings. They needed to be shocked into awareness. Satire could accomplish what lectures could not. George eventually accepted the approach. He saw how audiences responded to the finished film. They laughed, but they also thought. They left theaters discussing nuclear policy. They questioned military decisions. The comedy made them engage with important issues. George later admitted that Kubrick had been right. His serious novel had reached thousands of readers. The satirical film reached millions of viewers. The message spread further through laughter than through fear. Sometimes the best way to warn people is to make them smile. Sometimes humor opens minds that drama cannot reach. George learned to appreciate what Kubrick had created. Serious warnings became effective comedy. Number 6. The Wheelchair. That had a mind of its own. Dr. Strangelove sits in a wheelchair throughout the film. The chair became almost like another character. Peter Sellers developed an entire relationship with it. He imagined the wheelchair trying to move on its own. He pretended it had secret desires. This imagination created many funny moments. During one scene, Strangelove's chair suddenly lurches forward. Sellers reacts with surprise and struggles to control it. That movement wasn't planned. The chair actually rolled because of uneven flooring on the set. Sellers improvised his reaction. He pretended the wheelchair was rebelling against him. Kubrick loved the accident. He kept the footage in the film. The unexpected movement added to Strangelove's mysterious nature. Was the chair alive? Did it represent something dark inside the character? Audiences could interpret the moment however they wanted. Sellers continued playing with the wheelchair throughout production. He invented little battles between himself and the chair. He acted like the chair wanted to go places he didn't want to go. These small moments added layers to the character. Strangelove seemed controlled by forces he couldn't master. The wheelchair became a symbol. It represented the uncontrollable nature of nuclear weapons. Humanity had built something it couldn't fully control. Like Strangelove fighting his chair, nations struggled to manage their own destructive power. One accident, one rolling wheelchair, endless meaning created. What happened by mistake became profound art. Number 5. The Hand That Wouldn't Behave. Dr. Strangelove's right hand has a life of its own. It keeps trying to make Nazi salutes. It reaches for his throat. It attacks him when he least expects it. Peter Sellers developed this idea during rehearsals. He imagined Strangelove as a former Nazi scientist whose body still remembered old allegiances. The American government had hired him for his expertise, but part of him remained loyal to his past masters. That internal conflict showed through his rebellious hand. The condition Sellers portrayed is sometimes called alien hand syndrome. It's a real neurological disorder where one hand seems to act independently. People with this condition report feeling like their own limb is possessed. Sellers researched the condition before filming. He watched medical documentaries. He studied how patients reacted to their uncooperative hands. Then he exaggerated everything for comedy. The hand became aggressive. It tried to strangle its own owner. It gave salutes at inappropriate moments. Every scene with Strangelove became tense. When would the hand strike next? What would it try to do? Sellers kept audiences guessing. He varied the timing of each attack. Sometimes the hand was calm. Sometimes it went crazy. The unpredictability added to the humor and horror. Strangelove couldn't trust his own body. America couldn't trust its own weapons. Both were situations where creations turned against their creators. One hand told an enormous story. Number 4. The Actor Who Became Famous. By Saying Nothing. James Earl Jones appears in Dr. Strangelove as Lieutenant Lothar Zog. He's one of the bomber crew members. He doesn't have many lines. He spends most of the film following orders and reacting to events. But his presence is powerful. This was James Earl Jones's first feature film. Before Dr. Strangelove, he had only done stage work. He was a young actor hoping for his big break. Kubrick cast him based on his theater performances. The director saw something special in Jones's intensity. Even without words, Jones communicated volumes. His eyes showed intelligence. His stillness showed discipline. His brief reactions showed complete commitment to the scene. Nobody watching the film in 1964 knew they were seeing a future legend. Jones would later become one of the most recognized voices in history. He would be the voice of Darth Vader. He would be the voice of Mufasa in The Lion King. He would win Tony Awards and receive countless honors. But it all started in a cramped bomber cockpit, following slim pickings through nuclear apocalypse. Kubrick often discovered talent before anyone else recognized it. He had an eye for potential. He saw in James Earl Jones what the world would later celebrate. That small role in Dr. Strangelove launched an incredible career. One quiet performance opened endless doors. What started in silence became one of cinema's greatest voices. Number 3. The research that scared. The director Kubrick was famous for thorough research. Before making any film, he studied his subject obsessively. For Dr. Strangelove, he read everything available about nuclear weapons and military strategy. He consumed books, articles, and reports. He interviewed experts. He consulted with strategists. What he learned terrified him. The more Kubrick studied, the more he realized how close the world came to destruction every day. Safety systems could fail. Communication could break down. One mistake by one person could trigger global annihilation. The experts he met seemed disturbingly casual about these dangers. They discussed nuclear war like they were planning a business meeting. They used euphemisms to hide the horror. They calculated acceptable losses without emotion. Kubrick put these attitudes directly into his film. The characters speak about millions of deaths like minor inconveniences. They worry about political embarrassment more than human extinction. The satire came directly from reality. Kubrick wasn't exaggerating much. He was reflecting what he had seen and heard. After finishing Dr. Strangelove, Kubrick remained haunted by nuclear issues. He considered making more films about the subject. He collected materials about atomic warfare for years. The research for this one movie changed how he saw the world. He couldn't laugh off the danger anymore. He had looked behind the curtain and seen something awful. The comedy he created came from genuine fear. Laughter was his way of coping with terror. What started as filmmaking became understanding. What began as art became warning. Number 2. The full title. That Nobody Uses Dr. Strangelove has one of the longest titles in movie history. The complete name is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. That's 13 words for one movie. Most people just say Dr. Strangelove, but the full title tells you everything you need to know. Kubrick chose every word carefully. The phrase, "stop worrying and love the bomb," captured the film's entire philosophy. During the Cold War, people lived with constant nuclear fear. Children practiced hiding under desks. Families built bomb shelters. Everyone knew that destruction could come any moment. The government told citizens not to worry. Propaganda suggested that nuclear weapons kept everyone safe. Trust the military. Trust the politicians. Love the bomb that protects you. Kubrick's title mocked this attitude. He was saying that accepting nuclear weapons meant accepting insanity. Learning to love the bomb meant surrendering your common sense. It meant embracing madness as normal. The long title also parodied serious documentary films. Important movies about war often had elaborate explanatory titles. Kubrick made his sound pompous and official while delivering a joke. The subtitle works on multiple levels. It's ironic because you shouldn't love bombs. It's satirical because the film shows why worrying is appropriate. It's tragic because many people really had stopped worrying. They had accepted potential extinction as unavoidable. Those 13 words contain the entire message of the film. Everything Kubrick wanted to say fits in that title. Short attention spans made people abbreviate it, but the full version remains a masterpiece of dark humor. One title said everything. Number 1. the character based on real people. Dr. Strangelove himself was based on several real scientists. The most obvious inspiration was Wernher von Braun, the German rocket engineer who developed missiles for Nazi Germany during World War II. After the war, America brought von Braun to the United States. They wanted his expertise for their own missile program. His past was quietly ignored. His genius was too valuable. Kubrick combined von Braun with other figures. Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, contributed elements. Herman Kahn, a nuclear strategist who wrote about surviving atomic war, added more. These men shaped Strangelove's personality. Like them, he had disturbing ideas delivered with cheerful enthusiasm. Like them, he discussed mass death without apparent emotion. Like them, he served powers he didn't fully believe in. The wheelchair came from various sources. Some believe it referenced nuclear scientists who had become disabled. Others think it represented how these men were trapped by their own creations. They had built weapons they couldn't escape. They were prisoners of their own genius. Kubrick denied modeling Strangelove on any single person. He claimed the character came purely from imagination. But the similarities were too clear. Audiences in 1964 recognized the references immediately. They knew who Strangelove represented. They understood the criticism. By putting a face on nuclear madness, Kubrick made the danger personal. Abstract threats became a strange man in a wheelchair. Policy discussions became a hand that wouldn't obey. Distant dangers became close and real. Real people inspired the greatest fictional monster. Bonus fact: the photographer who shaped a mad scientist. Here's something most fans never discover. Peter Sellers based Dr. Strangelove's accent and mannerisms on a real person who worked on the film. His name was Ouija. Ouija was born Arthur Felig. He was a famous crime photographer from New York. He had captured shocking images of murders, accidents, and urban life. His photographs changed how people saw cities. Kubrick admired Ouija's work enormously. He hired the photographer as a special consultant on Dr. Strangelove. Ouija's job was to help create the film's visual style. He brought his dark sensibility to the production. He suggested lighting choices. He influenced the grim atmosphere. But Ouija contributed something unexpected. He had a thick European accent. He spoke in a distinctive, rumbling voice. He had unusual mannerisms and expressions. Peter Sellers became fascinated by him. Sellers watched Ouija work. He listened to how Ouija pronounced words. He studied the photographer's gestures and movements. Then Sellers borrowed everything for Dr. Strangelove. The German accent came from Ouija. The strange vocal patterns came from Ouija. The weird physical tics came from watching Ouija on set every day. Most people assumed Strangelove was based on famous scientists. The real inspiration was a crime photographer from the Bronx. Kubrick apparently knew what Sellers was doing. He approved completely. He loved how Sellers transformed observation into character. A man who photographed death helped create a character who planned death. A witness to violence inspired a prophet of destruction. Real darkness fed fictional horror. The photographer never received credit for his contribution. Few people know this connection even today. But every time audiences laugh at Strangelove's strange voice, they're hearing echoes of Ouija. One artist inspired another. One observer became the observed. Small inspirations create lasting art. Dr. Strangelove showed us something important about ourselves. We build things we cannot control. We trust people who don't deserve trust. We accept situations that should terrify us. Stanley Kubrick turned these uncomfortable truths into unforgettable comedy. He made us laugh at our own madness. And through laughter, he made us think. The film remains relevant today because the dangers it described haven't disappeared. Nuclear weapons still exist. Powerful people still make questionable decisions. The gap between our technology and our wisdom keeps growing. Every actor who appeared in this film contributed something special. Peter Sellers gave us 3 unforgettable characters. George C. Scott gave us wild energy. Slim Pickens gave us honest absurdity. Sterling Hayden gave us genuine darkness. They created something that still makes audiences laugh and worry 60 years later. Great movies do more than entertain. They ask questions. They challenge assumptions. They force us to see things differently. Dr. Strangelove asked whether humanity could survive its own inventions. That question matters more now than ever before. If you enjoyed learning these secrets, subscribe for more stories. Every classic film hides surprising truths. Behind every famous scene lies an untold adventure. We'll keep exploring, keep discovering, keep sharing, one story at a time.